Hi everyone, my name is Felix Schuster and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Edgeless Systems. At Edgeless, we're building open source software for an exciting technology called confidential computing. In this HelpNet security video, I'll be talking about our newest product called Constellation. We open sourced Constellation in September this year, and in one sentence, Constellation is the first quote-unquote confidential Kubernetes. So what does this mean? Let's first take a look at what confidential computing is and what problem it solves. So when you're running an application in the cloud today, you're essentially running on someone else's computer and you don't really know what's going on and who has access to your data. There could, for instance, be cloud admins accessing your data. There could be data center employees physically snooping on the memory bus, or there could just be hackers or malicious co-tenants accessing your data through the cloud infrastructure. Essentially, it's a mess, and that's why many companies and government institutions don't use the cloud for sensitive workloads or don't use it at all. And confidential computing solves this problem at the root. It's a hardware-based technology that allows you to keep your workloads encrypted during processing. Previously, we were only able to encrypt data on disk and during transit, and now we can also keep it encrypted during processing. So we're finally able to close the loop and keep it encrypted all the time. That's the most important feature of confidential computing. The other important feature is remote attestation. With remote attestation, you can verify that your data is actually encrypted during processing and that the right program is run on your data. And while this may sound like science fiction, it's already broadly available in the market. So recent Intel and AMD CPUs, they have these features, and clouds like Azure and Google, they even let you provision confidential VMs with one click. And yeah, these VMs are always encrypted, and you can verify that they are, and you can verify that they're precisely running your workload. And that's great, and it really solves a key problem that we had with data security and cloud security so far. However, at this point, this is a pretty raw offering, what you can get in the clouds. So it's basic infrastructure as a service. And you need to bring your own software, and you need to do everything manually most of the time. So you need to manage keys, you need to do remote attestation, and that can become quite complicated quite quickly, especially if we're not talking about a single VM, but maybe about a cluster of VMs, like running a Kubernetes cluster on confidential VMs. If you want to do that securely, that's quite complicated. And this is where Constellation comes into play. So Constellation is an open source Kubernetes distribution, and its unique feature is that it takes confidential computing and applies it to your entire Kubernetes cluster end to end, and thus shields your entire cluster as one big piece from the infrastructure. So Constellation takes care that all of the data in your cluster is always encrypted and that no one can access it from the infrastructure. And this applies to all forms of data, like on disk, during transit, and during processing. And Constellation also allows you to verify these properties remotely. So you can get a single succinct certificate, and from that you can verify that your cluster is shielded from the infrastructure and everything is always encrypted. And that lets you run sensitive workloads on the public cloud or elsewhere, and gives you the best possible data security. A big focus of Constellation is ease of use. And Constellation is deployed using an easy-to-use command line interface, and it essentially only requires 3 commands to set up a Constellation cluster in a cloud of your choice. And this is what I'm going to demo now. Now I'm going to create Constellation cluster in Azure. And I have already installed the Constellation CLI and I have already logged into my Azure subscription. And the first command now is Constellation create, and I'm going to create a cluster with one control plane node and 2 worker nodes. Okay, the cluster was created successfully, and now I'm going to initialize it. And this is now going to load our special node images into confidential VMs. It's going to verify all of these nodes. It's going to verify that the right software is running there, and then it will give us a ready-to-use Kubernetes. Okay, the cluster was now initialized successfully, and the only steps that's left is to set the kubeconfig. And now we are ready to use kubectl as we used to. Kubectl get pods, get nodes. We have 3 nodes, 1 worker node, 2 worker nodes, 1 control plane node, and now we can just deploy any application, and it will behave just like any Kubernetes, but it will keep everything always encrypted. So if you're interested in trying this yourself, all the steps are described in our documentation. It's all public, all free. Just head over to our website. Here are the installation steps, and then here are the steps to set everything up in the cloud of your choice. Currently, we support Azure and Google, with more to follow. So there are 3 big use cases for this. The first one is increasing data security. By keeping everything always encrypted and verifiable, you don't have to worry anymore about cloud employees, hackers, or malicious co-tenants coming through the cloud infrastructure and accessing your data. The next big use case is that this increased data security may allow you to move even sensitive workloads from on-prem to the cloud, and thus benefit from increased cost efficiency and scale. And finally, another use case is meeting regulatory requirements. For instance, in Europe, we already see that in the healthcare sector, certain applications require confidential computing and runtime encryption. And we believe that this is just the beginning, and that going forward, many industries and sectors will require the same. So this was my quick introduction to Constellation and confidential computing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. See you next time.